Welcome. Thank everyone for joining us today. My name is Matthew Riccio. I work for RSM. We're a international CPA firm. We're the largest provider to the middle market. I am the national leader of consulting for the real estate industry. I'd like my panelists to introduce themselves as well.
Good morning. My name is Anil Singh. I am Chief Technology Officer at a company called Veritas Investments. Based out of San Francisco, we are owner and operator of multifamily assets in San Francisco, Los Angeles, Seattle.
Good morning. Vincent Korta, Chief Operating Officer and Financial Officer of 2B Living Property Management, also based out of San Francisco Bay Area. We are a third-party property manager. We manage roughly 5,500 units, multifamily in the Bay Area.
Sandy Jacolow, Chief Technology Officer, Empire State Building, Realty Trust. We own the Empire State Building and the Observatory in New York, one of the most iconic buildings in the world. We have commercial as well as residential. I'm responsible for the entire tech stack, including AI and cyber.
And I'm Michael Clawar. I'm SVP of Innovation at Altus Group. We own Argus, cash flow modeling software, and we also manage valuations on behalf of our clients. So my team does data science, both internally as well as for our products. And then I have kind of the fun job of evaluating early stage concepts and prioritizing which ones we think are worthy of progressing to the product roadmap.
Excellent. Thanks, guys. So today we're going to be talking about AI and a little bit of the chaos that exists within artificial intelligence world we're living in today. We had the chance to connect before our panel a few different times, you can imagine. And since we first connected, I think the AI world completely changed. So that's what we're working with today when it comes to chaos. So before we get into that, we're going to talk a little bit about how we're all leveraging AI in our daily lives, how it's helping us, how it's becoming more efficiencies are being created in the workforce, in the back office, in the front office. So I'd like to ask the panelists to speak a little bit about how AI is affecting their worlds.
I can start. So as I said, we are owner and operator of multifamily. That means we have to respond to our clients who are basically prospects who want to lease with us or residents who are staying with us almost 24/7. So imagine somebody calling from New York, trying to rent an apartment in San Francisco on a Friday at 5 p.m. More often than not, we will respond to them maybe by Saturday or Sunday, we just don't know. So how can we respond to them in a very intelligent manner? And not only respond to them, can we schedule a tour if they meet our criteria over a weekend? So we have implemented AI that asks them right question, qualifies them if they are the right prospect or not. And if everything meets the criteria, we even schedule a tour. So what took us 24 hours, 48 hours to do the first response, now schedules a tour over an AI conversation that prospect may not even know that it's an AI. So that's one example, but there are many.
Yeah, appreciate that.
I think for us, there's probably three broad categories. Anil touched on this: customer communication, clearly being able to communicate with your customer, resident or owner at any time of the day or night is critical. And so we've been able to do that at scale now with the help of AI. Operational automation. At the end of the day, property management is a series of workflows. And so being able to do the ones that are repeatable in an automated fashion and have your team essentially level up and do more of the customer service interaction, the human-to-human interaction has been critical. And then finally, it's housing our SOPs and being able to query those in-house, right? So it's not a ChatGPT situation, but it feels like it for whether you're a new property manager or one that has been with us for a while, you're able to query that and understand how we run our workflows in a much more automated fashion.
When I think about AI impact, one of the most impactful things we did in our AI journey was train a broad range of employees, because you really just simply can't give people the tools and then say, go use it, because they really don't know what to do. So once we had our employees properly trained, we then start to think about what are the business cases and how do we vet those? And that's where it really began. We have people daily building coworkers. And for those that don't know what a coworker is, it allows you to train on creating queries, repetitive tasks that you can automate. And with that, a few examples of what we're doing. We have various departments using AI to scan legal documents. Does it have our clauses and our languages? We are scanning leases to come up with the first draft of an abstract. When you think about doing that from a deal perspective, you can actually lead that into the first draft of a rent roll, saving countless hours. Think about, scanning 50 leases in minutes versus the days and hours that would have taken. We actually have, from an IT perspective, we're scanning our riser closets to see if the cabling and the setup is up to code and up to standards, because AI can do a little bit of all of that. The other piece of it now that both Claude AI and ChatGPT have added Excel add-ins, we now have people doing a much broader range of analytics in spreadsheets, because these things have been fine-tuned for it. So it can group, it can summarize, it can analyze. A perfect example of that, I have one gentleman on my team that has a monthly review of users to make sure they're all valid. That process used to take him 3 hours manually to go through a report in Excel, cut and paste, and do the various things that he needs to do. That now takes him 2 minutes. And he can spend not only the time saved doing more analytics, but really going into the add value. The one thing that I will add with all the great things that AI is doing, you have to trust but verify, because AI will make mistakes as it learns.
I love that focus on the manual pieces. We did a little bit of an uncomfortable exercise a couple years ago where, for those who aren't familiar with Altus, we manage about 15 to 20,000 valuations a quarter for our clients. It's over $1 trillion of AUM. And we went through an exercise because the quarterly valuation process takes longer than a quarter, which is crazy. And we wanted to know where the time was going. And it turns out 80% of the time was just moving data from one system to another and transforming it in some way. That's how you could describe it. And 20% on actual insights or things that you would use to make decisions about rental values or managing performance. And we set this ridiculous goal of flipping that ratio. So 20% on the moving things around and 80% on insights, and trying to double our throughput without adding headcount. And I say ridiculous deliberately because I think one of the approaches that can work in this environment is forcing yourself to think outside of the box, because trying to push through double the throughput makes you think about things in a new and unique way, and not just about small marginal gains, which are important. But so example, we build software product as well, and a project that we thought would take a year and 10 people to complete and had been deferred for 3 years. We put 3 engineers on it with Claude Code, and they were done in a quarter. So now we're launching a evaluation agent that does all of that kind of aggregation and analysis of the underlying data, rolling that out to our teams and confirming that it actually is flipping that ratio, so they can then spend more time talking to clients, less time entering data or moving things around, and helping our clients make better decisions about their properties.
Yeah, those are all great examples. Thanks, guys. Appreciate that. One of the things that we're seeing at RSM is a lot of different perspectives on where people are in their journeys. We're working with different clients, different sizes, from publicly traded vehicles to family office structures, and all of them are at a different phase in their journey. Some of them are just exploring ChatGPT. Some of them are going with their enterprise Copilot, for example, and that's what we operate here at RSM. But one of the advantages that we have is we're hearing all these stories, and we're becoming more educated on what's working and what's not working. We certainly hear a lot of the chaos. So I'd like to talk about chaos a little bit, because obviously there's a lot of uncertainty in AI and where this world is heading, but it's here. So maybe Vince, we can start with you, and you can talk a little bit about the chaos.
Sure. Property management is a series of controlled chaos, maybe at best, we hope. So I'm not sure I'll be able to provide a ton of the clarity part, but I think the chaos that we see with respect to AI is somewhat twofold. On one hand, we've got the rank and file worried perhaps that, is this going to jeopardize their job? Is there something that, is their job essentially going to be replaced by AI? We're hearing a little bit of themes of this. The other part of the chaos is perhaps for us here on stage and others leading your firm, you're getting thrown so many different solutions to the problem that you're trying to solve, your business. And that solution might be an AI native to the software you have. So we use AppFolio, for instance, and AppFolio has some native AI features. The benefit of that is it's built for you and you can use it. The drawback is if it's not solving the problem that you need, you're stuck or you're waiting on them. The other part of AI, which we're starting to hear a little bit about from Michael, is the agents or the skills that can be built by the agentic AI models. And that there, I think, is really what provides the customization that is going to allow you to unlock. But at least for us, for a sort of medium to small size firm, you've got to be willing to invest in an engineer. As we were saying earlier, you're not going to get replaced by AI, but you'll get replaced by somebody that knows how to use it. I really believe now for just every single level of firm, you've got to invest in that part of your business, not necessarily in the software, but in the people that can implement that software into your firm and unlock some of the potential of AI, without a doubt.
Yeah, no, 100%. And Sandy touched on a little bit. A task that took a month now takes 3 minutes. Like, it's a completely different animal, right? And when you can enhance your own productivity, it's going to enhance your organizations.
Yeah, a quick example on that. We're using Claude in this particular case to write the variance notes. So we're analyzing budget to actuals, and Claude takes the first pass and writes the variance notes. Something that took at least a day for our property management team. Maybe the owner's looking at it for half an hour, but now it's done for them. They review it, they'll make adjustments as needed, and it allows that human-to-human communication to happen. The property manager to the owner is having a more robust conversation instead of them having spent a day or a day and a half typing in notes. That's getting done now with AI.
Yeah, 100%. Anil, I know you had a story you wanted to share as well when it came to chaos. Maybe you can share that?
Yeah, absolutely. So when I think about chaos, I was thinking about what the chaos we have in our processes, in our operations, day-to-day operations. And one of the things that was always out there was we are talking to our residents or we are talking to the prospects through a phone call or through a text message or whatnot, right? And those conversations are happening, but we don't have a transcript or a history of those calls. So if a resident called about a leak that may have had, a resident manager may have answered the call, but we just don't know how the call went. And multiply that by 1,000 times, because those are the 1,000 conversations happening throughout the day, nights and weekends, but we just have no visibility into what those conversations look like. Is it good? Is it bad? How do we train our people? So while we had systems and processes in place, we just didn't have the data on those conversations. And we have taken pride in building systems and solutions. So we built a system called Resident 360, which gave us 360-degree view of the residents, their interactions, and their payments, and how many maintenance tickets they have, and all of it. But guess what? That Resident 360 was really maybe Resident 270, because that missing 90-degree was this conversation that was just missing. So when we implemented AI, we made sure that we will be able to solve that problem. And yes, we have been able to. And now all the conversation, whether it's happening through a phone call, through text message, if they are sitting in front of a computer and typing a response, those are all nicely transcribed. So now I can say we are close to 360-degree view of the resident. So I think that's the chaos. We took it as a challenge and solved using AI.
Excellent.
Matt, I just wanted to share, you and I were just talking about this. I read an article yesterday that theorized that AI is causing softness in the office building sector and valuations are lower than COVID. And part of that is people are starting to get concerned that white collar jobs are going to be replaced by AI, which means companies will need less office space, less leasing activity, and ultimately reduce the valuation of buildings. So, completely unrelated bit of chaos in the office market now.
Yeah, if the office market didn't need more chaos, right? One of the things that we're seeing as a CPA firm is chaos around data integrity. Different systems, different vendors. You have data sitting at your property manager. You have different data sitting at your asset manager, your fund admin. The ability to integrate that data is one of the largest challenges in order to achieve AI. You can't build an AI predictive model or an agent on data that's fragmented. So that's something that we're seeing at the firm as far as just the inefficiencies of really getting your data together and secure and also structured. So speaking of security and structure, Sandy, being the CTO of a public REIT, I'm sure you're up late nights thinking about that.
Well, let's not talk about cybersecurity. That's a whole different session. But, when I think about the challenges of data, I mean, truly the accuracy of AI is based on the data, garbage in, garbage out. And one of the things, for example, I think most of us can acknowledge that we have information in different systems. You could have leasing information in Yardi, you can have it in Salesforce, and they're not always in sync. Somebody can, use kind of Salesforce as their CRM till the lease is signed. It doesn't get into a Yardi or an MRI. Well, when those are out of sync, depending on what reports you run or what AI analysis you run, you're going to have different data, different results, and that could really be a vast difference. So you need to now start to think about governance and security around how do you time these things? How do you know that you're using the most accurate data? One of the things people are considering is, do I have to run reports out of each system to make sure that I've got the same data? One of the other pieces is, in the past, nobody really owned the data, and it was a department. Well, you need to have somebody specifically, because I think, as we all know, when multiple people own something, nobody really owns it. And even thinking about when you have, whether it's a Chat GPT or a Copilot or a Claude, go against actual documents. We all use either SharePoint or file repositories. How do you know that the file that you're uploading is the most recent version? So you now need to even start to think about governance of file management and controls of, how do you know it's the most recent version? Because if you start to think about running an analysis or evaluation and you've got a lease document that's 2 months outdated because you don't have the most recent in there, again, your value is going to be off. So it's really about ownership, control, review, and making sure you have the processes in place to know that you're using the most accurate current data.
Yeah, appreciate that, Sandy. Michael, passing it to you. How many people at this conference do you think are going to ask you about an API to Argus?
I already got multiple questions on that this morning. API also transitioning to MCP, right? So more native integration. I will say, one kind of mindset of thinking about AI appropriately is it's like a new employee. It's like a very diligent, mostly smart intern who occasionally shows up to work drunk. But outside of that, how can you onboard employees effectively to your organization, and you're just turning them loose on everything in your org? And if it's not documented, it's not organized, it's not governed, they don't know who to go ask a question of, I'm confused because, talking about a director and investment manager a few weeks ago, I'm seeing vacancy numbers coming from two different things that aren't the same because someone defined it this way 10 years ago, and now the new property manager doesn't think that's the right way. Who's right? you wouldn't put an employee in that position. So we're expecting magic to happen from an AI system where there's inconsistent pieces. So I think that just reinforces treating them as employees, and then treating it as a strategic initiative, and having clear ownership over everything in the enterprise.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And we're all in this together. We're all in the real estate industry in this room for the most part, heavily weighted towards technology and systems. There's a lot of professionals that have specialties in this area, especially you have to now in AI. People are hiring data scientists within their organization that are real estate shops, which didn't happen in the past. What are you guys doing from a partnership with different technologies to a partnership with different vendors? What seems to be working at your organizations? Let's just go down the line.
Yeah, I think to be successful in this space, it's all brand new. So you have to rely on a vendor that you trust. I don't think you can solve every problem that you are trying to solve and be the most effective if you try to do it all by yourself. So when we implemented AI across all our portfolio, and we did it in one shot, we didn't do any pilot, we didn't do anything else. We just onboarded all 250 buildings plus all at once, and all processes that runs our operations all at once. We couldn't have done it on our own. We relied on a vendor, and at the same time, we made sure the vendor we work with is receptive to our feedback, because every product you choose to implement is kind of new, and they're also building as you go. So are they willing to take our feedback? Are they going to go to their product team and go build that product for us and make their product better for everybody else? So I strongly believe that to be successful in this area, find the right partner, work with them, provide the feedback, and if the partner is right, they will be vested in your success. And that's what we saw. So
yeah, we're a trusted advisor at RSM, so we hear that.
I'll take a little bit different approach here. It's building off the point I was making earlier, and we have at least our primary vendor in AppFolio as our property management software doing an excellent job in pushing AI, but they have to push it to their tens of thousands of customers. And while what we do is generally the same as other managers, it's not exactly the same. There's definitely some customizations that are happening there. I think what Michael was saying a minute ago is actually a really good point to think about AI as an employee that needs to be managed. There needs to be even goals around what you're trying to achieve with your AI, and having someone on top of that really responsible for it is key. And that's where we've started to see the benefit really starting to accelerate at our firm. One example, we recently onboarded over the last couple of months several hundred units, and there's a number of different tasks that have to be done for that. One of them is lease analysis and ensuring that what's in the lease ends up in your property management software. So while there's still human eyes reviewing that, we take the first pass with AI now, and it's again allowing us to do this at a much faster pace, and we're able to onboard buildings and units much more quickly than we were before. I think also the point that we've made as we've begun to lean into AI, and this is certainly still new at our organization, but is the North Star is customer service. At the end of the day, we provide housing as a service to the residents that rent there. We very much view the thousands of residents that we have as our customers, obviously along with the owners that own the buildings. And the more that we can have the human-to-human interaction with them, the more that we can provide actionable information to them, the better off we're going to be. And so if AI allows our team to take care of the monotonous tasks so that they can have those interactions, the better off we're going to be. That's the constant North Star for us as we implement AI.
In so many ways, this reminds me about 10 years ago of prop tech. Everybody thought they had prop tech. There was prop tech embedded into every tool. We had the same thing from literally almost every vendor now. We've built AI into our product. And when you start to look, under the covers, it's a lot of smoke and mirrors. Some of it's just typical machine learning. Some of it is just, basic, kind of running queries. So I think the first thing that you need to do is you really need to dig in and ask the vendor the questions as far as what they're actually doing, how they're doing it. We've had vendors promise us, to your point, connectors, right, into their product, which don't necessarily work. They're building it. And I think one of the things people need to understand, it's not just a connector or an API, it's an MCP service, so that, it's why you don't take your AI tools and go right across a database. You need to have the data a little bit structured, a little bit normalized, so that it understands what it's actually looking at, so it can add some intelligence to it. So while the vendors are all over the place, it's a challenge right now. One place where I will say that we partnered with a vendor, which was incredibly valuable, was a company that did training. And we've trained well over 100 people in our company. And it was a month session, right? Every week, people went with homework every week. They learned all about the kind of 6 to 10 different prompts, when to use them, how to use them, how to build coworkers. That was a great relationship with a vendor because it keeps giving back and people really learning in how to be comfortable. But when it comes to the products out there, you really need to really question what's going on and make sure it's not smoke and mirrors.
Anything to add, Mike?
I think, you talked about it from there's so many vendors out there perspective. I would say we're at the start, we were just playing whack-a-mole with dealing with employee requests too. I haven't seen this amount of kind of organic demand from people to try everything. And tons of fear that comes with that. People uploading confidential information into public AI, and then layer onto that every day on LinkedIn. This is the new greatest thing ever. The thing that I said was the greatest thing ever yesterday is terrible, and you're an idiot if you are using that thing anymore. So you have that slop AI bro kind of advocacy as well that you're trying to deal with. So we've had to set up a kind of a cross-functional council to oversee a lot of this, where we're starting with pain points, starting with what is the actual value we think we're going to deliver here. It's not AI for its own purpose. And then try to get quick wins and demonstrate that ROI before it gets rolled out to the rest of the organization. And I love Sandy's point on training. And you also mentioned something on just kind of restricting access to public solutions as well, which I think is a brave and appropriate step.
Thank you for that. Yeah, it's something that we're also seeing at RSM is we're hearing our clients. We need to cater to their needs and understand their business in order to be effective and be a good partner, strategic partner. And it's also knowing our limitations. If we're not an expert in a specific technology, it's admitting that, because the worst thing you can do is claim that you are, and all of a sudden now your client no longer trusts you. So for us, that's extremely important. Sandy, I'd like to go to you for a second, and I'd like to talk a little bit about governance and data policy and how your world is shifting every day because of artificial intelligence.
Yeah, for us, it actually started a few years ago where we created an AI policy. We realized that we needed to have the balance of encouraging adoption along with putting the guardrails in, particularly as a public company. So first we spelled out policies of when people can use it, how they can use it, and what the process is to get it approved. And part of that starts with a cyber data privacy policy and review that everything has to go through. And with that, you want to make sure, is the data within the four walls? Is it used for training, which means other companies can actually see that? We had an instance just the other day, and this is where our cyber review is so important. Claude AI has come out with a desktop application. And to install it, you need to actually turn on Windows developer mode. And for those that don't know what it is, it basically takes away all the security safeguards in Windows. So the code can then all of a sudden start to run scripts, which could be malicious code, in the background. So, you have to have those kind of cyber reviews. And then once they go through that, they have to have a business case, which is approved by their manager. And then we'll actually make the decision. We have an AI leadership group, which includes HR, legal, and IT to validate, to make sure it makes sense, to make sure the tool is appropriate. Once it gets signed off from there, then we actually allow, and to your point, we actually block at our firewall and VPN level all AI tools, just completely, not only by the category, but even by specific tools. So we then create an exception group. We give it out. IT has to purchase the licenses, so we have control over it, because there's a big difference between the enterprise version and the public version. The public version puts things out there. The other one, we can actually see usage. And one of the things that we found, particularly in this early stage, is people are trying to figure out, does this tool work? Does it not work? And you can spend, before you know it, you can spend a lot of money on AI. So you really need the financial prudence in there as well. We actually also go through on a quarterly review and look at people using the AI tools. We look at usage. Are they still using it? If they're not, we reach out to them and potentially revoke the license. And if they are using it, we still get some feedback for them to see if it really makes sense. So it really is a multi-pronged approach from review, approval, blocking, cyber, and follow-up to make sure that it's actually providing the value that we need.
Yeah. And it must be daily you're making changes to that policy at this point. 3 years ago, it was completely different. Am I wrong?
It is. In fact, last year alone, we did about 120 cyber privacy reviews, and it's ramping up. And every day it's another policy. And it's last week, a couple of weeks ago, Clawar introduced their Excel add-in, which is fabulous, by the way. Everybody wanted that right away. And then a week later, ChatGPT was, we have a new beta Excel add, and we want that right away. So it's literally, and everybody wants it right away to do the comparison to see which is better at which specific role.
Is Claude reviewing itself for the security reviews, or?
No, it's myself and our CISO. We're the ones doing the actual review.
Okay.
And then we actually provide that information to legal and get a full sign off before we move forward.
Awesome.
Thank you. Michael, with Argus and Altus being the ultimate parent, and you constantly developing software, how are your policies and governance changing?
Yeah, I think we're in the same space that Sandy described, where we have a policy. We provide software to clients, but we also are a service provider. We manage the valuation process on behalf of our clients, and so we are both building software and consuming software. And so we have a holistic view across our entire business that mimics what Sandy described. And we have a data and AI governance council that reviews everything. I think the challenge is how do you move fast enough in this market to be competitive without introducing risk, or like too much risk that you're willing to more than you're willing to take on. So we do have a risk stance that we evaluate and try to make informed decisions against. From a client perspective, I was talking to somebody, director and investment manager, and it takes them 6 months in their governance review to approve a new tool. And if you're making a decision based on what the state of the market is today, imagine how much is going to change in the next 6 months. So we've had to change things in a way to keep us more nimble in how we're evaluating these tools, but still keep ourselves and our clients' information safe and protected and managed responsibly.
Yeah, thank you for that. It's what we're seeing at RSM is just helping clients get through these narratives, this changing landscape. What's now is different from what's going to be in 6 months. It's a constant conversation, especially around like the generative nature of AI and these agents being built within systems and the integration of data between different vendors. It's a pretty crazy environment right now. So we got one last question for you guys, and then we'll open it up to the audience if anyone has any thing they want to ask the panel. Where are we going? What does 12 months look like? What does 5 years look like from now? If you could predict the future, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think it's easier maybe to see 12 months than 5 years. But I would say, as some of the panelists have already said already, AI is here to stay. It's how we can use AI to make our lives easier is the way to go. So embrace it. Different people have different use cases. Some are writing code. Some are powering their operations like we did. But it's all over the place. And in my role, I also advise companies, especially San Francisco-based companies. And when I talk to them and when I look at their AI policy and what they're trying to do, more often than not, I see in their policy, they're outlining what not to do. Like, don't do this, or this is risky, or, that's not allowed. But I think that's counterproductive to where AI will be and where the companies should go. So they should encourage, in a controlled, secure manner, what you are allowed to do, which products you are allowed to buy or what you should buy, and what use cases they should do. And I'll give you a small example. So one of the company I advise, they wanted to see what their use cases are across the firm and how AI can help them. So they did like a hackathon within their own company just to encourage people to try different use cases and not just leave it to the IT or the technology folks or the cyber folks to dictate what AI should do. The first prize winner in that hackathon was from marketing team. And they built something that will take their marketing to the new level. And I know it was only a hackathon type of a pilot proving out the concept. But the idea is allow other teams to go in, encourage them to go in, because more you take a controlled risk in AI, the better off you'll be in 1 year. Because these tools are evolving, everybody's copying each other. It's the ideas from different teams that matter. They are closest to their own problems. So it's better they try a tool to solve the problem and see the value. So that's kind of what I would say is important in the next 12 months. 5 years is difficult to say. I mean, I don't think it's it's even comprehensible what will happen.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, on the point of the 12 months, I was actually thinking as you were speaking, Anil, what happened 12 months prior, right? Where we are now and how much has changed with AI. And from our company's perspective, as I was mentioning earlier, we've definitely implemented a number of AI tools and initiatives. I'd say what really changed over those 12 months, though, is everyone at the firm is recognizing the power of AI, talking about AI. How are we going to continue to benefit from it and put some intentional resources behind it? And so if I think about the next 12 months, that leverage of having the resources that are fully dedicated to that is going to unlock quite a bit. That said, I don't think, at least in the property management industry, we're going to see a wholesale change of how the staffing model works. For instance, I don't think you're going to see property managers, getting fired or leasing folks getting fired. We still very much believe that this is a people-to-people business. What AI is going to do, as I mentioned earlier, is going to allow for that customer service to be a higher order part of the equation. And the relationship piece and the being able to build the relationships is going to be the true value that you can bring to your organization.
I actually think the buy versus build paradigm is going to greatly shift over the next year. I think many of the AI firms, the startups, will be struggling or potentially be out of business. They were just simply ahead of the curve in building prompts and GPTs in advance. Businesses are going to catch up. They're going to learn how to create prompts that are very specific to their business and what they actually need. What you're also going to see is vendors are going to create MCP servers, which is going to open up our ability to connect the ChatGPTs, the Claudes to their data. And once that happens, it's going to unshackle everything and put the power in the hands of the businesses. And you're going to start doing more build internally. Ultimately, once the companies like Argus and Yardi and others start to build those MCP servers and release them to the public, and you can connect and go at it yourself.
All right, great product feedback. Thank you. I'll say maybe two predictions. One, we talked about organization of data. I think we're going to see a real gap growing between those that have invested in organizing their information and recognizing that all of us have unique data assets that we can leverage in some new and unique way, and that the AI or the LLM components of it are going to be commodities for the near term at least. And then the second one, I think we're going to see some businesses being highly disrupted by lawsuits. Auditability is going to be absolutely critical to get this right. Somebody somewhere is going to make a decision that one of the earlier commenters or conversations on this, somebody's going to make some decision that violates some regulation or damages investor returns, and they're not going to have something to point back to, and you can't just say the AI told me to do this. And that's the real reason for all the policies and structure that needs to be put in place, is to reduce or eliminate that risk entirely, because it's an existential risk that we're all inviting into our businesses now, and we need to manage appropriately. And I don't think everyone is going to do that.
Yeah. I see a lot of more systems playing friendly than they have in the past, where systems have been closed off. They are unwilling to partner. It's very similar to what you guys are saying. Now there's the need, data's gold, and the ability to access it is so important to your business in the future of predicting a model for an acquisition or comparing what a year from 5 years now looks like within your portfolio. You need access to the lowest level data all the way up to the top, and your investors want that level of scrutiny. They want to be able to see what that asset's doing, why it's doing it, what you're paying your different vendors across the organization, and that's the future is the transparency into your investment at every stage. So I think that's where you'll see a lot of money being invested. I think you'll see a lot more data policies around who has access to what and why, and the security around it. And that'll be demanded by a lot of the investors in the world. So that's where I think we're going. Curious, we have about a minute, so maybe a question. What did we miss? Does anyone have anything that they'd like to ask? Please.
When you focus on building in-house models with your own data, I understand the edge that you get. Just repeat the question. Sorry, I lost my voice over the weekend. When you focus on building, fine-tuning an in-house model, let's say, a llama model or some, in-house model that you fine-tune on your own data, or you build with your data moat. How do you measure the benefit of that versus the trade-off of not having, the reasoning or the capabilities of the most up-to-date models that come out in the market? Because there's a trade-off there. Like, okay, fine-tune our own model. However, you guys aren't going to improve the model. You're not an AI training company. So it's like, so how do you measure that?
Yeah, for us, I think fine-tuning not something we think we're going to have a competitive edge in. The foundation model providers are going to win in that space. What we're investing in is better organization of data, setting up vector searches or retrieval augmented generation systems where we can make sure that we're surfacing the right artifacts at the right time so that the models can make their own inferences, and then letting the billions and billions of dollars of investment that none of us can fund actually improve those models. And we're seeing the largest lift is making sure we've got the data centralized, making sure it's documented, making sure that the agent has the right context when it's making decisions or it's making recommendations.
But your data is going to the foundational models.
It's not.
So you do like an enterprise.
Yeah. So I would suspect everyone on the stage is an enterprise version of Claude or others that have clear terms to make sure that doesn't happen.
We're all using enterprise.
I think now enterprise is, because of the security factor of uploading data to a shared environment that other people can access, there's all sorts of restrictions in your contracts and NDAs involved, where now it's a data security issue of putting that into a public version. So especially the CPA firm, that's what we're doing. I don't think we have time for any more. I'd like to thank you guys. I'd like to thank the audience. Certainly, please approach us during the week. Any questions you have, we love this stuff. So we're happy to continue the conversation. Thank you.